After 15 years abroad, a self-made billionaire returns home to Lagos for the biggest deal of her career, and comes face to face with the father she thought had vanished forever, now begging on the roadside. What she uncovers about her family's fall from grace will leave you speechless. A story of betrayal, pride, and redemption. Subscribe for more emotional life stories every week. She had a private jet, 3 passports, and a company worth more than most countries' national budgets. He had a paint bucket to sit on and a tin cup that was usually empty. Neither of them knew, when her convoy stopped at that red light, that they were about to find each other again, after 15 years, and after everything that tried to keep them apart. This is her story. Amora Adeyemi Cole had not touched Nigerian soil in 15 years, and for most of that decade and a half, she had told herself she never needed to. At 38, she was the founder and chief executive of Solane Capital, a fintech and logistics empire with offices in London, Nairobi, Singapore, and Sao Paulo. Forbes had called her the quiet billionaire, because Amora rarely gave interviews and almost never smiled for cameras. She preferred spreadsheets to spotlights. She preferred, if she was honest with herself, anything to memory. Her jet touched down just after 6 in the morning, when the Lagos sky was the color of a healing bruise, purple bleeding into orange. This was, by any measure, the most important week of her professional life. A meeting with the Minister of Trade, a groundbreaking ceremony, private talks with 3 state governors who wanted her company inside their treasuries. She had built this trip for a decade. She wanted Lagos to meet her the way a stranger meets a queen, with no memory of the girl who left, only awe for the woman who'd arrived. She had not told her family she was coming. She wasn't sure, anymore, if she still had one. Lagos hadn't waited for her. New bridges cut across the lagoon that hadn't existed when she left. And yet underneath all the new concrete, it was the same restless city. Hawkers balancing trays on their heads, conductors hanging out of moving buses, the smell of roasted corn drifting through sealed vents. At a stoplight near Oshodi, traffic locked into total stillness. A boy tapped on her window selling phone chargers. She waved him off gently, the way she always did. Then, past the boy, near a row of makeshift stalls, she saw him. An old man on an upturned paint bucket. Trousers too big, cinched with rope. Bare, cracked feet. A tin cup, empty except for a few coins. Amora's hand went still. She had trained herself, for 15 years, not to see faces like that one. But something in the set of his jaw made her look again. To understand why her hands were shaking, you have to go back 23 years. Folarin Adeyemi had been a structural engineer, a partner in a respected construction firm he'd built with his university roommate, Chaka Balogun. Folarin was the technical mind. Chaka was the talker, the one who charmed commissioners over long lunches. For 11 years, their firm built hospital wings, roads, schools. Amora remembered her father's hands, always ink-stained, always sketching on the backs of envelopes. She remembered him teaching her to calculate load-bearing weight with a ruler and a bag of rice, because he said an engineer's daughter should understand why buildings don't fall down. She was 16 when the firm collapsed. A building they'd constructed developed a structural fault. An investigation followed, and forged safety documents surfaced, bearing her father's signature, on inspections he swore he never signed. It was Cheka who had quietly siphoned money for years, using cheaper materials, and forging Folarin's name to cover it. There was no dramatic trial. Just a quiet settlement, a dissolved company, and a friend who vanished into a new firm under a new name, while Folarin Adeyemi was left holding a reputation the whole city had already decided was guilty. At 17, with a scholarship to London she'd won on her own merit, Amora left. Her father held her at the airport gate and told her, "Don't look back at this house. Build something they can't take from you." She wrote for 2 years. Then the letters came back undelivered. Then, too proud and too overwhelmed to chase down a family she feared had given up on her, she stopped trying. She built Solane Capital instead, the way her father once built hospital wings, and told herself the company was proof enough that she'd survived. She never once let herself imagine him on the street. She walked back through the stalled traffic alone. Horns blared. None of it registered. She stopped in front of the old man on the paint bucket. Up close, the years had done cruel work. His hair, once neat, was matted white. But his eyes, when he finally looked up, were unmistakably her father's eyes. "Sister, please," he began, in the practiced monotone of a man who had said the words 10,000 times. "Anything you fit spare." He stopped. For a long moment, neither of them said anything at all. "Papa," Amora said. The tin cup tipped over. Neither of them moved to right it. "Amora," he whispered. "No. No, this cannot be. You look like your mother. Is it truly you?" She knelt down on the cracked pavement, in her tailored trousers, in front of the entire stalled intersection, and took her father's cracked, calloused hands in hers. "It's me, Papa," she said. "I'm here." She sat with him on the roadside for nearly 20 minutes and let him talk. Her mother, Yuawand, had died 6 years earlier, a stroke, in a rented room in Mushin. After Amora's letters stopped, Folarin had convinced himself she'd built a new life abroad with no room for the family that failed her, and told himself she deserved that freedom. No engineering firm in Lagos would touch his name after the case was never formally closed. The family moved 4 times in 8 years, each room smaller than the last. Diabetes he couldn't afford to treat eventually took his ability to stand for long. The corner near Oshodi had become, in the cruelest irony, the only stable address he'd had in a decade. And then, in the smallest voice of all, he told her about Cheka Balogun. "He is a chief now," Folarin said. "You will see his name on 3 estates in Lekki. Everyone in this city thinks he is a philanthropist." He laughed, a dry, awful sound. "I used to think God had forgotten to settle the account. Maybe he was only waiting for you." By evening, Folarin Adeyemi was bathed, fed, and resting in the second bedroom of Amora's hotel suite. She cancelled the governor's meeting outright and kept only the sit-down with the Minister of Trade, because that one, it turned out, would matter more than she'd planned. She didn't sleep that night. For the first time, she pointed her company's forensic accounting division at something other than a business deal. By 3 a.m., the trail was clear: 3 shell companies linked to Cheka Balogun, capital injections traced straight back to funds skimmed from the very budgets that caused the building collapse 2 decades earlier. It had taken the state's investigators years to fail to find this. It took Amora's team 6 hours. She typed a single message to her legal team: "Prepare everything. We are going to correct the record." She did not storm into his life with lawyers and headlines, though she could have. She'd learned that the most devastating reckonings are the quiet ones. She accepted an invitation instead, to a fundraising gala for his foundation. Chika recognized her the moment she stepped into the light. "Amora," he said, recovering his charm. "Little Amora Adeyemi. London has been good to you." "It's Adeyemi Cole now," she said pleasantly. "And it's not London that's been good to me, Uncle Chika. It's arithmetic." She let him take her hand, smiling for a passing camera, then leaned in, quiet enough for his ears only. "I found my father," she said. "Begging at a traffic light in Oshodi. 68 years old, no pension, no name he can use in this city. Meanwhile you're cutting ribbons on 3 estates in Lekki." His smile went rigid. "I had 11 forensic accountants working through the night," she continued. 3 shell companies. A capital trail back to material budget skimming, the same fraud that ended my father's career. "You have no idea what you're threatening to unravel," he said, low and fast now, charm gone. "I built a company across 4 continents from a scholarship and a suitcase," Amora said. "I understand exactly what I'm threatening to unravel. The only question, Uncle, is whether you resign from every board you sit on, quietly, over the next 30 days, and fund my father's care in full, or whether my legal team files Monday morning, with copies to every journalist who's ever wanted a real story instead of a gala photo." Cheka did not go quietly, not at first. He gave one interview calling it the fantasy of a woman who doesn't understand how business works here. It did not go the way he hoped. Within 3 weeks, a formal inquiry opened. Within 6, his own partners came forward, eager to distance themselves before the whole structure came down. His foundation's board resigned within a fortnight. Developments bearing his name were quietly rebranded within 2 months. 11 weeks after Amora knelt on that cracked pavement, her father's engineering license, suspended for over 2 decades on forged documents, was formally reinstated, with a rare public statement acknowledging the original investigation's failure. It would not undo the years. But it changed, permanently, whose name the story belonged to. Amora bought her father a modest, sun-filled house in Ikeja, close enough to remember, far enough to heal. She funded his care, and quietly established a scholarship in her mother's name for girls who couldn't otherwise afford school fees. 6 months into his recovery, Folarin asked for something that startled her more than any forensic report had. "Let me consult," he said. "Not build, not manage, that door is closed. But consult. Let an old engineer check your blueprints one more time." She hired him on the spot, at full market rate, over the mild objections of an HR department that had never had to explain a nepotism clause to a billionaire before. A year to the day after she found him, Amora returned to that same intersection, this time on purpose, her father beside her. The paint bucket was long gone. 2 streets over, a shelter and skills training center now served the elderly and the chronically ill, funded quietly, with no name on the building. "You didn't have to come back here," her father said. "I did, actually," Amora said. "I spent 15 years building something so big that Lagos would have to notice me. I never once thought about what I'd do if Lagos still needed me to notice it back." Her father took her hand, the way he used to at that old airport gate. "Look at what you built," he said. "Look at what we're rebuilding," she corrected him, and put the car in drive as the light turned green. If this story touched you, let us know in the comments, and subscribe, because next week, we've got another one you won't want to miss.